Discover the incredible transformation. Abandoned abroad, I found hidden strength after 30 days. Jessica stood at the bustling airport in Mexico, her hands trembling as she clutched her passport. She had left behind the safety of her suburban Ohio life, her family's expectations, her mountain of student loans, and a nursing job that no longer inspired her. Now, all she felt was an overwhelming sense of isolation. After weeks of planning, she envisioned this trip as a noble escape, a chance to find herself, but she had never anticipated being abandoned. When the bus carrying her traveling companions had broken down unexpectedly, they found themselves stranded. Now, alone in a foreign country, with no cell service and barely a grasp on the language, she felt utterly powerless. What if she'd made a mistake? Her mother always cautioned her against impulsive decisions, especially when it came to important matters. Deep down, Jessica craved approval and feared disappointing her family. Would they understand her need to find purpose beyond the conventional path laid out for her? As she meandered through the vibrant streets filled with unfamiliar faces, a wave of despair washed over her. The smells of street food, the sounds of laughter, all felt alien amidst her loneliness. In her mind, the pressure surged. She was supposed to help others, yet she couldn't even communicate effectively. The faces around her were filled with resilience, families gathered in the market, their interactions so effortless, so full of life. Meanwhile, she was trapped in her own bubble of self-doubt, questioning her skills and purpose. She had always wanted to make a difference, yet here she was, isolated by a language barrier and overwhelmed by the complexity of poverty and survival surrounding her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing day, Jessica confronted her tormenting thoughts. Could she ever be the strong, competent nurse she dreamed of being? Or would she always be the girl trying to live up to everyone else's expectations? Each moment felt like an emotional tug-of-war. The desperation to leave and the determination to stay clashed within her. She was caught between a yearning for home, for her mother's cooking and her family's support, and a newfound desire to help those who had so little yet shared everything they had with her. But then came the moment that shook her resolve. An elderly woman in the village who had welcomed Jessica with open arms was denied critical care. Her heart raced as she watched the family's anguish unfold before her, trapped beneath the weight of a ruthless healthcare system. It struck her like a thunderbolt. Could she turn her back on this, where so much was at stake? The anguish in her gut now felt urgent and raw. Jessica realized she was standing at a crossroads. The values instilled in her were a constant reminder of integrity, compassion, loyalty. Everything she felt she owed to herself and to the people who had embraced her. Each decision weighed heavier than the last, and she stood suspended between following the path of personal success or diving headlong into this messy fight for dignity and care. As her flight home loomed closer, the tension inside her crescendoed, with every second pushing her toward an irreversible choice. Would she rise to the challenge, or allow herself to retreat into the comfort of familiarity? The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the dirt paths of the village. Each evening, Jessica retreated to her small, makeshift lodgings, feeling the weight of her indecision settle heavily on her shoulders. With each passing hour, the reality of her situation stung sharper. Sitting alone while she had the ability to intervene was becoming unbearable. The faces of the people she had encountered haunted her, their needs pressing against her heart like a relentless tide. One night, sleepless and agitated, Jessica turned to her notebook, her thoughts spiraling wildly, seeking a semblance of clarity among the chaos. She had brought it along to document her journey. but the pages remained largely empty. Now, as she held the pen, words began to flow. She wrote about her fears, her failures, and the stories of those around her. Tales she had witnessed yet felt too paralyzed to engage with. This was cathartic. It allowed her to confront her insecurities head-on. Writing became her means of processing the swirling emotions. Each stroke of the pen pushed her deeper into an understanding of herself. The girl raised on praise, yet riddled with doubts. Embarking on this journey, she had believed change was something to be found outside of herself. Yet, as she faced her fears through the ink and paper, the realization hit her. The transformation she sought was inside all along, but it required embracing the discomfort instead of running away from it. Driven by this newfound resolve, Jessica drafted an audacious plan. Rather than waiting for help to fall into her lap, she would take small steps to connect with the community. She began by volunteering at a local health clinic, using her nursing expertise where she could, despite her language limitations. Each interaction felt like unraveling a complicated knot. The more she engaged, the more she learned. Her words might falter, but her determination propelled her forward. Facing patients with limited resources, Jessica felt the thrill of making a difference, no matter how small. With each bandage wrapped, with every comforting touch, she began to communicate through actions rather than words. Slowly, she fostered trust and built relationships, and the villagers started to reciprocate her efforts. Their laughter and acceptance transformed her loneliness into connection, illuminating the darkness she had previously felt. Jessica's evenings became filled with laughter, sharing rudimentary Spanish lessons and stories of resilience. She felt alive again, each day strengthening her resolve and gradually replacing self-doubt with purpose. Yet, the haunting image of the elderly woman remained at the forefront of her mind. It stayed with her like an unhealed wound. Then came the night when she overheard a conversation. A group of local nurses discussing the implications of the healthcare system on the elderly community. Jessica felt charged, ignited by the need to confront the system that had failed them. This was her moment. She was no longer just an observer. She was an advocate waiting to speak out for those who had no voice. With palpable determination, Jessica decided to approach these nurses. She would not wait any longer. Her internal fight, the one that had kept her frozen in doubt, had transformed into an external battle for justice. As she took a deep breath, the commitment surged through her veins. This was not just about healing. It was about challenging the status quo. The time had come to face the healthcare complexities head-on and discover just how far she was willing to go. Would she have the strength to make a difference? Or would her fears pull her back? Jessica's pulse quickened as she approached the group of nurses huddled in the clinic's break room. Their animated discussions around care protocols for the elderly echoed in her ears. Each word felt like a siren call, beckoning her to step further into the tide of advocacy she now craved. She had waited long enough, stifled by her fears. Now, a blend of adrenaline and resolve surged through her, compelling her to believe that speaking her truth was as essential as any medical intervention. With each step, she stifled the self-doubt that had long been her companion. This was not merely about healing. It was about empowerment, both hers and those she had come to care for. "Excuse me," she interrupted, her voice wavering slightly, but still loud enough to catch their attention. The nurses turned, their expressions ranging from curiosity to surprise as they noted the unfamiliar face among them. "I couldn't help but overhear you discussing the healthcare needs of our elderly community," Jessica continued. The sincerity in her voice began to drown out her initial trepidation. "I believe we could work together to make a difference." One of the nurses, a seasoned professional with tired eyes, gave her a marginal smile, inviting her to continue. Encouraged, Jessica dove deeper into her thoughts. She shared her experiences at the clinic, highlighting obstacles she had witnessed in patient care. She spoke passionately about the vulnerability of seniors, the neglect that often followed them into a healthcare system focused more on procedure than compassion. As she spoke, Jessica felt the fortified walls of her insecurities begin to crack. Despite her limited command of Spanish, her words carried the weight of personal conviction. She could see the shift in their expressions from skepticism to intrigue. It was as if, with each revelation, she was also unraveling her own questioning nature. "Who are you?" the nurse with the tired eyes finally asked. "You speak with much more understanding than your presence here would suggest." Jessica paused, a quiver of vulnerability replacing the confidence she had found in her momentum. "I'm just someone who decided to stop waiting. I can't stand by anymore while others suffer." The nurse nodded, clearly impressed. "Your perspective is invaluable. Perhaps we can teach you more about the system here and how to bring about change," she offered. This unexpected reprieve ignited a fierce desire in Jessica. Over the next several weeks, she immersed herself in discussions about geriatric care, learning the intricacies of local healthcare policies and exploring ways to advocate for improvements. Each evening, after the sun set, she would return to her notebook, reflecting on the knowledge gleaned from the conversations, reorganizing her thoughts into structured arguments for a more humane approach to elder care. However, as the sparks of her determination fired, so too did the shadows of doubt whisper in the corners of her mind. Each success came with a lingering question. Would the establishment truly listen? Would her efforts make a tangible difference? Or was she simply spinning in the ether of well-meaning intentions? This tension culminated one afternoon as she prepared to present her initial findings and suggestions to the local health board, a collection of seasoned professionals, many of whom had been entrenched in their ways for decades. She could feel the weight of their expectations bearing down on her. What if they dismissed her ideas? What if her fears were validated rather than quelled? The moment of truth loomed before her, and Jessica's heart raced with a blend of excitement and terror. She stood at the precipice of opportunity, ready to advocate passionately for those who had no voice. But the brink of setback loomed ominously behind her. Would she have the strength to face the board, or would the fears she had fought so hard to suppress come rushing back? With every beat of her heart, she questioned how far her newfound resolve would take her. The stakes had never felt higher. As the day of the presentation drew closer, Jessica felt the tumult of preparation coursing through her veins. The visual reminders of her humble beginnings lingered on the walls of her small apartment, where sticky notes filled with thoughts and insights adorned the fridge like a chaotic, emotional mural. Each phrase she had penned kept her grounded, whispering encouragement in moments of doubt. On the night just before the meeting, she sat hunched over her notebook, outlining the main points she wanted to address. Would she mention the lack of trained staff in elder care facilities? Or would it be more impactful to highlight the successes of other clinics that embraced humane practices? The balance between information and emotion was delicate, and her heart pounded with each decision. Yet beneath the practical concerns thrummed an ever-growing awareness of her own evolution. The days spent at the clinic had not only equipped her with knowledge, they had ignited a spark she hadn't recognized before. She could not simply be a cog in the machine. She could drive real change with intent and clarity. As she rehearsed in front of her bathroom mirror, she noticed the reflection staring back at her. A determined woman who had transformed from an uncertain novice into a passionate advocate. The words she practiced tumbled out with newfound conviction, each sentence building upon the last, shaping her into a formidable force. But when morning arrived, the adrenaline of purpose was soon superseded by dread. Standing in front of the health board was like standing before a towering wave, surreal and intimidating. Each step she took toward the conference room felt heavier, dragging the weight of uncertainty behind her. She caught glimpses of the board members seated, their expressions a mix of disinterest and fatigue. It was simple to believe they had already decided her fate before she uttered a word. As she took a deep breath and settled into the chair, her pulse reverberated in her ears. The chair felt too imposing, the table too wide. If she faltered now, all she had built would collapse like a house of cards. She steeled her mind, drawing on the weeks of preparation and the late-night reflections that had brought her here. Finally, Chairman Graves acknowledged her with a dismissive nod. prompting Jessica to begin. She opened her presentation with statistics she had meticulously collected, her hands trembling slightly, but her voice steady. As she delved into the issues faced by elderly patients and the systemic gaps in care, she felt a renewal of strength. Yet, as she neared the middle of her presentation, a sudden interruption drew her attention. One of the board members leaned forward, a wry smile on his lips. "And how exactly do you propose we convince others to adopt these so-called improvements?" he challenged. The question felt like a punch to the gut, a wave crashing over her confidence. Yet it didn't destroy her. It revealed another layer of her growing resolve. Instead of crumbling, Jessica locked eyes with him, her heart pounding as she shifted gears. "We start by telling the stories that have gone unheard," she asserted, letting emotion flow into her words. "Real people, real struggles. Each cycle of neglect fuels the urgency for change. They don't need more policy papers. They need action, empathy." Her voice resonated through the hushed room, igniting a flicker of surprise across the board. She realized in that moment that while her voice could falter, her message could not. Each word delivered was a challenge to their complacency, a moment of reckoning. But despite the flickers of engagement from the board members, Jessica could feel the remnants of her earlier doubts creeping back. Would the wave of resistance ultimately drown out her resilience? As she neared the conclusion of her presentation, one final thought threaded through her mind. Could this really be the turning point she had fought for? Or was it merely the beginning of a more daunting battle? As she delivered her closing remarks, her heart raced with tenacity, both a thrill of possibility and the fear of rejection intertwining. What would their decision be? Would her courage lead to commitment, or would it dissipate into echoing dismissals? In the charged silence that followed her wrap-up, Jessica sensed something shift, a palpable tension, an anticipation. She could see the hesitation in some faces, but hesitation could also signal a chance for change. The board members leaned into one another in hushed whispers, their deliberation hanging in the air like a pendulum poised on the brink of fate. Jessica swallowed hard, knowing that the next moments could redefine everything she had worked for. Would she learn that trust came at a price? The seconds stretched into agonizing minutes, each tick of the clock echoing the quickening of her heart. In that charged atmosphere, Jessica grappled with the invisible weight of the moment. She couldn't shake the feeling that she stood at a pivotal junction, where the choices made in this room could either catapult her forward or halt her journey irreversibly. Desperation clawed at the edges of her focus. Attempting to dispel the rising panic, she refocused on the board members' furtive exchanges. The tension of their deliberation held a duality. While it could signify hesitance, it could also be their way of processing something wholly unfamiliar. Something she had brought to light, but doubt crept in like a shadow. Had she conveyed her message with enough passion? Had she punctured through the apathy that often encased bureaucratic discussions? Just as her resolve began to falter, a familiar voice broke through the mental fog, resonating within her. It was her own. A quiet reminder that transformation was rarely easy. It called on her to embody the change she sought. As murmurs finally quieted, the chairman cleared his throat, drawing every eye back to him. "Jessica," he began, his voice steady yet impersonal, as if measuring the air for precision rather than empathy. "Your presentation has been thought-provoking. However, we need to assess the feasibility of implementing changes based on your suggestions." The carefully constructed sentences dripped with skepticism, and Jessica felt her gut tighten. This felt like a line in the sand. She could either choose to retreat into a defensive posture or confront the challenge head-on, rallying the fire that had ignited within her in recent weeks. "I understand the concerns surrounding feasibility, Chairman Graves," she replied, leaning forward, channeling everything she had into her voice. "But let's not forget that the most successful revolutions in any field begin with audacious ideas. Ideas that disrupt the status quo precisely because they challenge its limitations. We must wager on human dignity, which is a cost beyond any fiscal assessment. As her words ignited a brief flicker of interest on some faces, she felt a surge of confidence. The walls of formal decorum began to fade, granting her space to thrive in this context. She had fought hard to hone her voice, and now it was a weapon shaped by experience and fueled by necessity. Imagine, she continued, tapping into the momentum she had generated, a community clinic where we prioritize authentic care over mere financial incentives. Picture a paradigm shift, where stories fuel our progress. We've seen clinics thrive under these principles. It's a testament to not just caring for the elderly but empowering our staff too. But the board members shifted uncomfortably, and their breaths hung heavy in the air, stifled by the weight of their ingrained routines. A glimmer of frustration welled as she recognized the palpable fear of change, a fear she had previously shared, one she had chosen to fight against. This realization stung, but it also sharpened her clarity. The healthcare system is built on comfort, not confrontation, she continued, unwavering. But comfort without action breeds stagnation. I'm not asking for your agreement. I'm inviting you to question. What will your legacy be in deciding the fate of those who have been overlooked? With each passing moment, Jessica embraced the paradox of her existence. A novice who dared to confront seasoned professionals armed only with the raw power of empathy and the burden of truth. She had unearthed hidden strength that had always lurked beneath the surface, and she would continue to wield it, refusing to shrink back in the face of resistance. As she spoke, she could feel the atmosphere shifting once more. The board members paused, their shifting glances suggesting something had changed within them, if only slightly. Yet, as that hope flickered, it was riddled with uncertainty. She knew she had not yet sealed her victory. Before they could respond, the chairman leaned back, folding his arms, surveying her as if weighing the potential of a coin flip. What you offer is undeniably compelling, Jessica, but we remain bound by resources and reality. Can you provide a tangible proposal that aligns with our current capacities? The question crashed over her, demanding a new layer of introspection. Could she articulate a bridge between her vision and their practical constraints? The time had come to face both her brightest aspirations and the ruthless logic of their world, forcing her to consider how far she was willing to push against the brink of conventionality. Would she risk everything she had gained to pave a path forward, or would she carefully compartmentalize her dreams to fit neatly into the existing framework? As the answer loomed on the horizon, Jessica felt a storm brewing within, a storm that could either ravage her resolve or grant her the clarity she desperately needed. The room hummed with a peculiar energy, where silence collided with the palpable weight of expectation. Jessica's heart thrummed in tandem with the ticking clock, marking seconds that felt both endless and fleeting. She had recalled her presentation, but now the all-consuming question lay heavily upon her. Could she truly devise a tangible proposal that bridged her vision with their constraints? Forcing herself to breathe, she began to visualize options, a mental mapping that illuminated the darkness that threatened to suffocate her ambition. Disjointed fragments of ideas started to coalesce, each possibility raising the stakes for her future. Could she craft a model that wasn't just a watered-down version of her dreams, but rather a dynamic proposal, rooted in the essence of those very dreams? Jessica sat straighter, drawing on the previous weeks of reflection and preparation. She remembered the countless late nights researching cases where innovative clinics had surpassed conventional wisdom, transforming patient care while respecting fiscal realities. The faces of those patients, countless stories mixed with despair and hope, galvanized her spirit. She would not shrink before their apathy. "Chairman Graves," she started again, choosing her words with meticulous care. "What if we approach this proposal not just with a conservative mindset, but embrace a motivated risk, an investment of resources into our staff? What if we pilot a program focusing on professional development that directly aligns with patient-centered care, pushing both our budget and ideals?" As she spoke, she felt away that panic from moments before seep away, replaced with the thrill of being in command of her narrative. The board members exchanged glances, skeptical, yet intrigued. Perhaps she had ignited just the spark she needed. We could implement a training initiative for our staff, focusing on empathy-driven practices and integrated care models that have been successful in other organizations. By equipping our people, we wouldn't just train them to handle workloads. We'd empower them to influence every interaction with reverence for patient dignity. The chairman leaned forward slightly, a subtle signal that her words were landing. That's all well and good, but you are talking about reallocation of funds. In an environment where budgets are tight, how can you assure us this isn't just a leap of faith? A flicker of uncertainty crept into her resolve. How could she present her ideas without dismantling her vision? I can outline a phased approach, pilot programs that will allow us to assess effectiveness before a full rollout. This allows us to measure ROI not just in dollars, but in patient satisfaction and care outcomes, which ultimately reflect our institutional values. The board's skepticism was matched by a glimmer of curiosity. She sensed their walls of hesitation loosening ever so slightly. Jessica continued, skipping through her mind, each point less a risk and more an opportunity. Could it be they were beginning to see sparks of possibility? The prospect felt substantial and dizzying. The lingering doubt persisted, however. What if her ideas, though bright, simply weren't enough? With every share of her vision, she felt a sense of vulnerability creeping back. Yet therein lay her power. She made her internal conflict an asset. One by one, she sought to make eye contact with her audience, willing them to understand the gravity of what was at stake. This isn't just about revamping processes, it's about redefining relationships, with our patients and with ourselves, and leading a healthcare evolution that insists on our commitment to humanity over the mere numbers. By the end, there was a palpable shift as board member after board member began to nod in hesitant agreement, though it was unclear if they fully embraced her vision yet. A light in their eyes revealed a curiosity igniting latent desires for something greater, but just as Jessica felt the promise of acceptance coalescing, the weight of the moment returned. This wasn't final. Their initial intrigue didn't guarantee anything. What if they needed more than words? What if her own fears could yet undermine her? As silence hung in the air, Chairman Graves interjected. There's merit here, Jessica, but we'll need proof of concept. You'll have to undertake this pilot proposal personally, without our initial funding. The room fell silent once more, that storm within her roiling with new intensity. Did she have it in her to manage the mountain of expectations, to step into uncharted territory and fully realize her potential? The risk was more than she had anticipated. How would she adapt? The path ahead cracked open like an unfathomable void, exhilarating yet terrifying. Jessica nodded slowly, determination hardening her gaze. I'll create a detailed outline and take full responsibility for its implementation. This fight is just beginning, and I'm ready. As the board began to speak, an unexpected clarity illuminated her path, leading her closer to a daunting yet unequivocal truth. She was not only willing to propose change, she was prepared to be the catalyst herself. As she exited the boardroom, a familiar unease twined with the thrill of newfound resolve, leaving her with a simmering question. How far was she willing to go, and at what cost? The answer was yet to be written, steeling her for the challenges ahead. Jessica stepped into the bright hallway, the residual tension of the boardroom still thrumming in her veins. The air buzzed with the chatter of colleagues, but she felt worlds apart, a storm of thoughts swirling within. The gravity of the decision she'd made pressed against her chest, each breath a reminder of her commitment to not only advocate for change, but to embody it. The uncertainty of her path loomed large. How could she execute the pilot program without the backing of resources? The prospect felt daunting, yet somehow invigorating. This was her moment to transcend previous limitations, to explore the depths of her capabilities. She felt an itch of inspiration, a primal urge to dive deeper. Back at her desk, she spread out her notes, looking for structure among the chaos of her thoughts. Each line on the page beckoned her to refine her ideas, breaking them down, stacking them like gears begging to turn together into something cohesive. Enhanced training methods cried out for careful consideration, their potential nested in how they would resonate with staff members. This wasn't just a plan, it was her vision screaming for realization. The hours began to blur as she immersed herself in research, piecing together evidence from successful programs across the nation. The more she delved, the more interconnected her insights became, as if she were stitching a quilt from disparate patches. She realized she had been given a unique opportunity, not only to effect tangible change in her clinic, but to carve out her niche as a leader in her field. But a creeping doubt tugged at her. Was she prepared to handle the inevitable resistance? As she established timelines and projected outcomes, shadows of self-protection whispered caution. What if she failed? Would she become just another voice drowned in the tides of bureaucracy? Jessica shook her head, pushing the thoughts aside. This wasn't a time for fear to dictate her choices. She remembered the patients, the faces that had empowered her during her presentation. To turn back now would be a disservice to them, to their hopes, and to her own potential. The next day, armed with a more developed outline, she approached colleagues whom she respected for their experience and insight. Each interaction was nerve-wracking yet exhilarating. Jessica presented her vision to Dr. Patel, a seasoned physician known for his conservative approach, and to her surprise, he lent a focused ear. "I see potential in your vision," he said after a lengthy discussion, "but you'll face skepticism. The staff may resist changes, fearing the burden of additional workload without clarity. You need both buy-in and practicality." His words sunk deep, igniting a clarity within her. If genuine engagement was to be the cornerstone of this initiative, she needed to cultivate relationships, not just with the board, but with her peers as well. Driven by this epiphany, Jessica sought to foster a sense of community around the pilot program, envisioning focus groups, brainstorming sessions, and cultivation of ownership among staff. The realization washed over her. This could not be her program alone. It had to feel shared, a collective journey toward resilience and revolution. As days rolled into weeks, each interaction became a catalyst for her growth. She learned to navigate objections, allowing challenges to be the stepping stones from which she would rise. Every meeting, every conversation strengthened her resolve, stitching her into the fabric of shared purpose. But with growing momentum came another realization. The deeper she pressed, the more isolated she felt from those who had once stood beside her. This personal cost weighed heavier than she had anticipated, a painful contrast to the exhilaration of her burgeoning role as a leader. That evening, standing before a mirror, she confronted her reflection. Who was she becoming? Would her ambition alienate her from the very people she sought to serve? Questions loomed larger than ever, heavy with implications. The next morning promised a significant meeting, where she would finally share her refined vision with the entire staff. Empowering dialogue could pave the way for acceptance, but what if her own need to push boundaries provoked mistrust? As she prepared her notes, a thought glimmered, but this time, it was laced with urgency. Am I ready to challenge not just the status quo of the clinic, but perhaps the very essence of my relationships? Jessica stood at the precipice of something transformative, but the unfolding path demanded a reckoning. Would she have the courage to embrace potential conflict while still nurturing the connections that mattered most? The day held an unprecedented weight, a reckoning not just for the clinic but for herself. How deep was she willing to plunge into the crucible of leadership, risking her own interpersonal ties for a greater cause? The answer lingered tantalizingly just out of reach, inviting her to find out. As Jessica entered the meeting room, a slight tremor coursed through her fingers. An ocean of faces looked back at her, each person a unique blend of curiosity and skepticism. She positioned herself at the head of the table, feeling an inherent weight in her role. This was a synthesis of her ambitions and fears, a battleground where she would either stake her claim as a leader or stumble under the weight of expectation. Her mind raced, recalling every note she'd penned in the weeks that led here. She hadn't merely drafted a plan. she had woven a narrative that was meant to resonate deeply with each staff member present. Yet, at that moment, all her preparations seemed to recede, overshadowed by the palpable tension buzzing in the air. "Thank you for being here today," she began, her voice quivering slightly, but steadying quickly. "I'm excited to share a vision that could redefine our approach to patient care." As she launched into her presentation, she noticed the subtle shifts in expressions, a mixture of interest, unease, and the all-too-familiar mask of indifference. Jessica aimed to connect on a personal level, infusing her presentation with stories that highlighted the potential impact on patients and staff alike. The anecdote of a young patient whose care could be transformed not just through medicine, but with an empathetic approach resonated powerfully. Yet, as her narrative unfolded, doubt crept in. Had she bridged the gap between her vision and their acceptance? When she finished, an urgent silence filled the room. Colleagues exchanged hesitant glances, and Jessica braced herself for the inevitable pushback. It was Trent, a trusted associate, who broke the stillness. "I see what you're trying to do, Jessica, but I think you're being a bit naive. The staff's workload is already overwhelming. Where's the evidence that this approach will yield better results?" The words hit Jessica like a bolt. Naive. She felt the heat rise to her cheeks. But then, in that instant, a flip switched in her mind. She was not just here to present, but to engage. This could be her moment to demonstrate that leadership required not just vision, but an ability to listen and adapt. "You're right, Trent," she said, leaning forward, careful to keep her tone inviting. "We all feel the pressure of our current environment, and I don't want to add to that burden. What I'm proposing isn't about workload, it's about adaptability. Let's open the floor. How can we integrate these ideas in a way that minimizes stress while maximizing patient care?" Jessica watched as the room started to shift. Colleagues who had been passive began to nod, and some even leaned forward in their chairs. A discussion developed, spilling over with ideas and reservations. People shared their concerns, and for every suggestion of resistance, there was a counter-response fueled by colleagues eager to explore solutions collectively. As discussions shaped the room, Jessica felt her earlier isolation begin to dissipate, replaced by something electrifying: connection. Through navigating difficulties, the team forged a bond of support, creating a transformed vision together rather than just accepting hers. But amidst the surge of camaraderie, another realization settled in her gut. Though she was moving toward unity, doubts still lurked. Was this shift enough? Could she maintain this collaborative spirit while also asserting ownership over the program? As the meeting drew to a close, she felt an undeniable shift in her confidence. She was no longer merely pushing an idea. She was weaving threads of connection that forged her into a leader worthy of trust. After the meeting, however, her mind was restless. How could she ensure that this wasn't just a one-time collaboration? How could she make them feel part of the program long after the excitement of today faded? Jessica found herself wandering the corridors of the clinic, pondering the day's revelations. The real work was only beginning, and with each step, she felt that anticipation, tightrope walking with anxiety. She understood that she needed to craft a sustained engagement strategy, but the deeper question loomed. Could she push through potential complacency and resistance, not just strengthening her leadership, but evolving it in tandem with her colleagues? With urgency swelling within her, she recognized the stakes. Tomorrow would demand not just action, but a commitment to fostering trust. A dance of persuasion and vulnerability. Jessica's journey was no longer simply about a program. It was intertwined with her personal narrative, a testament to resilience in both leadership and connection. What path lay ahead as she balanced authority with collaboration? Would she find a way to anchor her leadership in the very relationships she feared she was losing? The uncertainty churned within her, propelling her forward into the unknown. The next morning dawned with a sense of urgency that pulsed through Jessica like a heartbeat. She awoke resolved to transform the palpable momentum from yesterday's meeting into a sustained culture of collaboration. Her mind raced as she planned the day ahead, balancing optimism and trepidation. If she was going to ignite genuine engagement, she had to do more than present ideas. She needed to take each pulse of her team's anxieties and aspirations into account. She began with a series of informal check-ins, tuning into the various departments across the clinic. Each conversation was a thread that could weave a stronger fabric of understanding. Jessica focused on listening intently. Perhaps the most striking moment came when she spoke with Mark, a veteran nurse whose weary smile hinted at both pride and fatigue. "I want to care for every patient, but sometimes it feels like I'm just moving through a checklist," Mark shared, his voice breaking slightly. Jessica felt a pang of empathy. She understood his frustration and the critical need for balance. "What if we turned that checklist into a map?" she proposed, her voice steady despite the swirl of thoughts within. "What if we focused more on patient stories and less on ticking boxes? I'd love to work with you to envision that." His eyes brightened momentarily as this new perspective began to form a framework for conversation. For every check-in, Jessica unearthed critical insights that would challenge the traditional workflows. Each conversation solidified her belief that collective intelligence could yield innovative solutions. Yet, as she navigated this morning labyrinth of thoughts, she grappled with deeper questions about her authority. Would her collaborative approach dilute the direction needed in a bureaucratic setting? By the time she returned to her office, a whir of excitement buzzed around her. Their voices still echoed in her mind, reinforcing her desire to shift the clinic's culture. To organize her thoughts, Jessica grabbed a notebook, jotting down strategic initiatives, some bold, some tentative. A weekly brainstorming session came to mind, a safe space for staff to propose innovative adjustments in their routines. To garner participation, she decided to introduce an incentive structure where staff could contribute ideas and receive recognition. Yet doubt lingered, gnawing at her resolve. Would her team embrace this approach? Was it risky to let them shape their own responsibilities? Each line she wrote felt increasingly daunting. Then, the phone rang. Trent again. He was skeptical of all the recent changes. "I think you're right about collaboration, Jessica. But do we risk losing clarity in our objectives? Your vision is important," he stated plainly. The compliment caught her off guard, and encouraging from someone who had previously raised concerns. The tension in her stomach churned again. Should she reinforce her authority as the leader with a clear directive, or embrace the vulnerability of collaborative leadership? "Trent," she replied slowly, "I appreciate your concern. I want us to define our path together and not just adhere to a top-down approach. It has to be a balance, but I don't want to lose sight of the end goal." Through their exchange, she felt her confidence wavering, yet strengthening simultaneously. The obstacles she faced weren't just concerns about patient care. They mirrored her own fears. Every voice in the clinic had the potential to augment her vision, yet it was just as vital to maintain the clarity for herself. Later that day, she prepared to present her fresh initiatives to the team, anxiety prickling beneath her skin like static electricity. Would they understand? Would they trust her choice to invite them deeper into the decision-making process? She felt a tug toward confrontation. This could either reinforce her role as a leader or threaten to fracture the fragile trust she'd begun to build. As the meeting room filled, the anticipation lingered like fog before a storm. Could she hold steady and come out not only with their support, but also her own sense of self? The stakes had never felt higher. She had a vision, but now it was time to uncover what lay beyond in her own journey. Could she truly lead by sharing power? With the door swinging wide, Jessica stepped forward, ready to face this next chapter head-on. Each heartbeat pulsed a question through her. Would they embrace her vision, or would they resist? The moment hung in the air, charged with the potential for transformation, uncertain yet exhilarating. As Jessica stepped into the meeting room, she felt the mix of anticipation and trepidation thrumming through her veins. The weight of decision rested heavily on her shoulders, not just for her vision, but for the collective journey that lay ahead. The faces of her colleagues turned toward her, each one reflecting a blend of curiosity, skepticism, and the unspoken hopes they carried. "Thank you all for gathering here," she began, her voice steadying as she made eye contact with each individual seated around the table. "Today, I want to share not just my vision, but an evolving narrative. A narrative that belongs to all of us. Together, we can redefine how we approach patient care." As she spoke, Jessica felt the walls of doubt begin to crumble. Sharing her insights from the check-ins, she painted a tapestry of ideas woven from their shared experiences. What if we created weekly brainstorming sessions where all ideas are welcome, no matter how unconventional? Her resolve grew with the excitement in the room, with every nod and murmured agreement fueling her confidence. But then, as expected, the flicker of skepticism sparked across the room. It was Trent again, but this time with a different tone. "But Jessica, how do we sustain momentum with this approach? We don't want to become mired in over-discussion and lose focus." She felt the familiar pang of hesitation, but now it was accompanied by a newfound clarity. "You're right, Trent. That balance is crucial. That's why I propose that every shared idea has a follow-up, an action item with responsibilities clearly defined. We establish transparency in how we support each other's initiatives to avoid feeling overwhelmed." The room began to shift as her proposal took root. They were not just an audience, but an evolving team ready to transform their practice. Gradually, the hesitance within her peers began to thaw, revealing a palpable sense of collaboration. Ideas flowed freely, and Jessica facilitated the conversation, actively engaging everyone, listening intently to their concerns and hopes. As they built from her proposal, she realized that she had developed not just a framework for improvement, but a community focused on empowerment. Over the following weeks, Jessica immersed herself in her role as a facilitator. Each brainstorming session flourished, revealing latent ingenuity among her colleagues. A murmur of excitement rose as they identified key areas for improvement and began to craft moving narratives around the patients they served. They were not only responding to challenges, they were becoming the architects of their path forward. Yet, while this collective harmony thrived, a quiet voice within her still questioned her authority. Was she leading, or merely orchestrating? It was during an unexpected encounter with a patient's family that illuminated her purpose. They had come in with a crisis, worried about a loved one's care plan. It was her moment to lean into that urgent need, that heartfelt connection, and to demonstrate real advocacy. "Let's talk through your concerns," she said, feeling the familiar weight resolve into purpose. The family shared their fears while she guided them through the care options available, finally crafting a plan that reassured them. As she noticed tears of relief turning into gratitude, she sensed her transformation. It wasn't about proving her authority. It was about embodying compassion and accountability. With her role crystallizing, Jessica felt the final lesson of her journey begin to crystallize. True leadership soared through vulnerability, compassion, and shared purpose. She and her team had created not just a protocol, but a rhythm of collaboration that echoed beyond their walls. When she presented the results of their pilot program to the clinic's board, she noticed a shift. Their previous skepticism was now replaced with an open-minded curiosity, as Jessica showcased not only the qualitative outcomes, but also the quantitative metrics they had achieved. "We've transformed our approach to elder care," she said confidently. "Together we embraced vulnerability, and because of that, we generated significant improvements in patient satisfaction and staff morale." In that moment, as she stood before the board, she realized that she had achieved what she had set out to do. This was not merely an endorsement of an initiative. It was validation of her growth as a leader, an empowered advocate who had confronted doubt and championed resilience. The board responded positively, acknowledging her efforts, and tasked her with overseeing the full rollout of the initiative. As she stepped away from that meeting, Jessica felt a sense of profound satisfaction. She had conquered not just the perceptions of others, but her own limitations. She had proven that true fulfillment lay in connection and responsibility, and her ability to lead through collaboration. This was her moment, not just for recognition, but for personal achievement and professional resolve. The evolution she had sought was not a destination. It was a continuous journey, and she was ready to embrace every challenge it presented. As she walked through the clinic, the echoes of laughter and conversations filled her with hope. She knew the impact stretched far beyond policies. It was about people. This was her triumph. Now, dear viewers, this is the moment for you to act. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to boost the algorithm. Comment below your thoughts on Jessica's transformation and share your theories about what comes next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this inspiring conclusion. Your support makes all the difference. All the